Okay, then. Ah, howdy, folks. Howdy, BFOD squad. Welcome back to Barrel Full of Darrell, Season 2, Episode 17. Hey, that's a prime number for a prime episode. So, we're going to talk about some music and some movies. I'm going to toss in a little bit of mirth, as well as some other funky ass shit. Now, last week when I discussed the band U2, I omitted to tell you the origin of that band name. In 1978, the band wanted a new name, and a graphic designer gave them a list of suggestions. 6 names on the list. They chose U2 because it was the one that they hated the least. Okay. Also, U2 is a U.S. Air Force spy plane that flies way, way up in the sky at about Mach 5. Yeah, Mach 5. And Bono felt that it had a provocative edge to it. Also, the name implies audience engagement. U2, YOUTOO. Yeah. Now, before using the name U2, the band was called Feedback and then The Hype. Yeah, to me, those names just don't, they don't pass the sniff test. Could just be me, though. Okay, last week, mystery music lyric. They were looking, trying to book him, but my pappy kept on cooking. And that is from the song White Lightning by George Jones. Pretty sure it's on the playlist. Okay, a new mystery movie quote. Okie dokie, artichokey. Okie dokie, artichokey. What movie's that from? Discuss that next week. Okay, music. Sir George Ivan Morrison, also known as Van Morrison, also known as Van the Man. He was born in Belfast, Ireland in 1945. He is a musician, singer, and songwriter. And he plays guitar, harmonica, keyboards, and saxophone. Very talented. Guess you have to be to make it in the music world. Now, his career spanned over 7 decades, and he released 51 albums. Now, his genre has been labeled as Celtic soul, and it's influenced by soul music, rhythm and blues, jazz, and Celtic traditional music. Yeah, very cool. Now, his voice is unique, with one critic saying, "No white man sings like Van Morrison." And rock historians say that he is one of the most unusual and influential vocalists in the history of rock and roll. His awards include 7 Grammy nominations, of which he won 2. He's been inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, the Songwriters Hall of Fame, and the Irish Music Hall of Fame. He also has 2 honorary doctorates, one from the University of Ulster and the other from Queen's University, Belfast. Let's see. Yeah, you guys know where Belfast is. Northern Ireland? Okay. Just making sure. Now, back in Season 1, Episode 18, way back, probably about a year ago, I discussed the band known as The Band and their famous concert titled The Last Waltz. There's a movie about it. It's great. Van the Man was one of the musicians to perform at this show. Now, he started his career in 1965 as lead singer for the band Them. That's it, Them, Them, a Belfast R&B group. Now, he wrote and recorded the song Gloria, which became a garage band staple and has been covered by over 100 different artists, including The Doors, Patti Smith, Jimi Hendrix, and AC/DC.
That blows my mind.
Yeah, so he's kind of a big thing, which is why I'm talking to you about him. Other than the song Gloria, these are some of his songs that you probably have heard: Moondance, Brown Eyed Girl, Wild Night, Here Comes the Night, and It Stoned Me. If not by him, you may have heard covers of those songs. Yeah. Now, John Mellencamp did a cover of Wild Night. It's very good. Now, my favorite album by Van Morrison is titled Moondance. It was released in 1970. Yeah, I was just a teenager back then. And it contains the hit song Moondance. But each song on this album is very good and very cool. In particular, the song titled Into the Mystic. That one slays me every time I listen to it. The song titled Crazy Love, it's just a beautiful love song. Now, I wouldn't classify any of the songs on this album as rock, more like soul with a little mixed in R&B. Now, before he released his second album, Astral Weeks, in 1968. Now, this album, it was a big departure from his first one, and it's strayed away from pop music completely. It's basically a concept album with lengthy songs containing stream of consciousness lyrics. Originally, it was not successful, partly because the record label did not promote it, and because it is distinct from the rest of his entire discography. However, over the years, it has become a classic, and it is viewed as one of rock's greatest records, and it's considered a culturally significant work. It has influenced bands such as U2, Bruce Springsteen, as well as others. Now, this is not my favorite album, as I've already said, but it is a classic. Maybe you should listen to it in its entirety and give me your thoughts on it. So march on over to the playlist and give his songs a good listen. If you're not familiar with them, I think you'll be amazed. Okay, now a word from our sponsor. I'll be right back. Oh, hi y'all. This is Billy Ray Bubba again. I escaped. Damn it. I was released from the federal penitentiary in Atmore, Alabama, due to my good behaviors. Them conjugal visits with the warden's wife probably helped out a lot too. Now, I ain't going back to Scratch Ankle, Alabama, because the feds and the local police know me all too well. So I moved a bit north to Possum Trot, Alabama, and I set up my used car lot behind the Piggly Wiggly there. Now, this alley ain't as nice due to the 3 smelly dumpsters, but it'll do. Once I got to this area, I was able to obtain 3 nice used cars. Now, I got a 2005 red Dodge Neon, and it's even got seat belts. I got a green 1972 Ford Pinto, but don't you believe them stories you might have heard about them catching on fire when hit from behind. I ain't never seen it happen. And by the way, it ain't got no seat belts. And last but not least, I got a yellow 1999 Yugo. I don't know why so many people are down on this car. I think they're really nice and get great gas mileage. Now, in this one, you gotta jiggle the key a bit and pump the clutch a few times to get it started, but then it rides like a dream. If it weren't so small, you would think you was riding in a Cadillac. Now, the seat belts, they were kind of worn and seemed to have a little bit of blood on them, so I just yanked them out. So if you're in the market for a fine used car, you come see me behind the Piggly Wiggly in Possum Trot, Alabama. Now, if you don't find me out on the car lot, you just throw a rock at the tent behind the 2 oak trees and I'll be right out. Bye for now. And we're back. Movie. So, I kept hearing about this movie called Fall, Fall, on Netflix. So I gave it a go the other day. Now, it's a thriller movie released in 2022, and it is currently streaming on Netflix. It tells the story of 2 female rock climbers who decide to climb a 2,000-foot tall, abandoned TV tower out in the desert, out in the middle of nowhere, no fucking where. Now, it stars Grace Caroline Curry as Becky, and Virginia Gardner as Hunter. Now, Hunter, she's a content creator, and she goes on a lot of daring adventures and records it all. She's got like 60,000 followers. Now, at the beginning of the movie, Becky and her husband Dan and Hunter are rock climbing and they're scaling a steep wall. Dan reaches a small cave and he pulls himself up to it. When he looks into it, a bird flies out, scaring the shit out of him, and he falls. He is suspended by his rope, but the piton pulls out and he falls to his death. Okay, so jump to 1 year later, and Becky is still in deep depression, and she's unable to get on with her life. Her friend Hunter shows up at her apartment one day and tells her she needs to get out, and she suggests that they climb this tower that she's heard about. Becky reluctantly agrees, and they head off to the desert. Now, they stay in a motel, and the next morning they drive to the tower. But they come to a locked gate with a sign that says, "No trespassing, danger of death." So they climb over it, and they walk to the tower, which is about a mile away. Now, at the base of the tower, they come upon 2 buzzards eating a dead dog, and they shoo them away. So at the tower, well, let me tell you about this tower first. It's 2,000 feet tall. In the first 1,000 feet, there's a ladder that's contained within a steel structure, a steel frame. But the next 1,000 feet up, the ladder is exposed. Okay? So looking up at the tower from the bottom of it, Becky tries to back out of the climb, but Hunter convinces her to go up and to overcome her fear. Now, as they start the ascension, the ladder is shaky, and it's missing bolts, and it has bolts that are ready to fall out, but they don't really notice this on their way up. Probably too damn scared. And on the way up, Becky tries a couple more times to back out of it, but Hunter urges her on. And finally, they reach the small platform at the top, and they celebrate. And Becky records it all with a drone. Now, also at the very tippy top of the tower, There's a red warning light for aircraft, okay, and it blinks, as you know they do. So they're celebrating on top of this tower and having a good time. When they decide to leave, Becky crawls off the platform, gets on the ladder, and it breaks away from the tower. There's like 3 sections of it, and she's hanging on to the top rung, and it doesn't kill her. She doesn't fall. Okay. So Becky's able to hold on to the ladder, and Hunter helps her back up to the platform. But the bag with their water and the drone have fallen down onto the dish antenna below. The ladder continues to break apart, and the whole thing just crashes to the ground. Yeah. So, with no ladder, no water, and no cell phone reception, they realize that they are now fucked. Hunter goes, "Oh, wait, we had cell phone reception on the ground." So she thinks and she decides to leave a message to her 60,000 followers, put the phone in her shoe, and drop it to the ground. And at that level, her message will send. So she puts her phone in their shoe. She's got these high top kids or something. And she drops it to the ground. And she says, "Okay, if we hear a ding, we know it got sent." She does pad the phone within the shoe, by the way, with her sock and and her bra. Yeah. So they don't hear a ping, but from that height they probably wouldn't anyway. And they wait for rescue, but nobody responds. So they spend their first night on the tower. Oh, also during that day they had noticed a small metal box attached to the tower, and when they opened it there were binoculars and a flare gun inside. So the next day, Hunter starts looking around and sees a dilapidated RV in the distance. Okay, it's out beyond the gate where they came in. She also sees a man walking around with a dog quite far off. He's part of the RV, it belongs to him. Well, they scream to get his attention, but he's too far off. The man returns to the RV, and Hunter sees that he has a friend with him. So they decide to wait until dark and shoot the flare gun, which they do that evening. And the two men see it go off, and they have binoculars, and they look and they see these two girls on top of this tower waving their phones with their flashlights on. And the guys get in their car, and the girls are like, "Oh boy, we're about to be rescued." But the guys drive to the gate and steal Hunter's car. Yeah. And the girls' hopes are dashed again. Now, the next day, Hunter, ever the daredevil, climbs down the rope to retrieve the bag from the antenna. Now, she barely makes it, barely gets the bag, and she attaches it to the end of the rope. So she gets back on the rope and starts climbing up the rope as Becky starts pulling the rope up as well. But the rope slips from Becky's hands, and Hunter falls and lands on the bag at the end of the rope. So she climbs back up the rope and gets to the platform, and they can now have water. Becky notices at this point on Hunter's bare foot that she's got a tattoo. 143, just 3 numbers, 143. And that was Becky's husband, Dan. That's the code he used for "I love you." So Hunter had fallen in love with Dan. while Becky and Dan were engaged, and they had a 4-month affair. Becky is heartbroken about this, and Hunter apologizes just repeatedly. But Becky stays icy toward her. So Hunter has the brilliant idea to put a note on the drone, which they have now rescued, and fly it back to the motel. Aha, good idea. So Becky writes a note, sticks it in onto the drone, and it's flying out toward the motel, and about halfway out, it's running out of battery. So they have to give it the retrieve command, and it flies back to them. Okay, so they get the drone back, and when they first got to the motel on this trip, they were in a diner next door, and Becky's phone was very low on power, and she asked the waitress if she could charge her phone somewhere, and the waitress says, "We're not a diner, we're not Apple, so no." But then Hunter shows her this little trick. She takes the charger, the phone charger, she reaches to the lamp on the table, unscrews the light bulb, and sticks the charger prongs down into the light socket, and the phone starts charging. I don't know if that actually works, but it did in the movie. Okay. So Hunter reminds Becky of this trick, and she points to the red warning light on top of the pole. Okay. So Becky shinnies up the pole. Now I say shinnies, but it was a tough trek for her to get up to the top of that pole. She barely made it, and she gets to the light. She unscrews the bulb, and all this while, there's a buzzard who just keeps attacking her, hitting her on the head, bumping into her, because she has a cut on her leg. When the ladder failed and she was climbing back up to the platform, she got a pretty good gash on her leg, and the buzzard knows it. Now, Becky, she struggles, and she takes the prongs of the charger, puts it into the socket, and yeah, she's able to charge the drone. And she has to wait for it to fully charge the drone. So this time, when they fly it, makes it nearly all the way to the motel. But as it's crossing the highway, the drone gets hit by a semi-truck. Whoops. So now they are truly, totally fucked. On the third day, Becky is exhausted and she keeps nodding off, but Hunter keeps her awake. Becky asks Hunter for her other shoe so that she can send a text to her dad. Okay, spoilers. This serves as your spoiler alert. Heed this alert if you want to watch this movie and you don't like spoilers. So when Becky asks Hunter for her other shoe, Hunter tells her that she doesn't have the other shoe. But Becky's looking right at her, and she sees the shoe on her foot. And Hunter says no. When she fell off the rope, she didn't land on the bag, but she hit the antenna below and died. Yeah. So Becky's been living in denial and communicating with a ghost for the last day. So, Becky she's starving, she's exhausted, and in desperation, as the evening comes, She plays dead, and she allows a buzzard to come and nibble on her wound. She grabs it by the throat, beats it to death on the platform, and starts eating its raw meat. Yeah. Now this revives her a bit, and she goes down the rope to the antenna where Hunter is laying dead. And Becky types a text to her dad, puts the phone in Hunter's sneaker, and then she jams that sneaker into a gash in Hunter's abdomen. And then she rolls her off the tower. So her cell phone was well protected by a dead body. So her dad receives the text and he dials 911 and sends rescuers to the tower. He shows up at the tower and he sees a dead body being covered up, and he's thinking, oh God, that's my daughter. But that was Hunter. Then he sees Becky. Reunite. Everybody's happy. Roll credits. Okay. Now, I was amazed by this movie. I didn't know that. I didn't know the actresses, and to me that just enhanced it a bit. The plot, the story arc. Wow. The writers did a good job with this, and the cinematography. I just don't know how the fuck they recorded all of those scenes on that tower, or on fake tower, or on a studio set, whatever. But it was very convincing, and there are a lot of holy shit and fuck me moments in this movie, and I obliged them all. So, it's not a great movie. It's not an epic movie, but the story and the acting are great. Yeah, bit of a cheesy ending, but that's okay. I highly recommend it. So go to Netflix and give it a watch. Tell them Daryl sent you. Okay, sip of water. Yum. Word of the week. Malapropism. 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 This is a language thing. It's the unintentional or occasionally deliberate misuse of a word by replacing it with a similar sounding word that has a completely different meaning. Basically, for a nonsensical or a humorous result. And here are a few examples. For all intensive purposes, instead of intents and purposes. Here's another one. Nip it in the butt. Instead of nip it in the bud. Scapegoat, instead of scapegoat. And here's a really good one by Yogi Berra, old baseball player. He shit. Sorry about that. Yogi Berra had this quote. He's amphibious. He's talking about a baseball pitcher and confusing amphibious with ambidextrous. Yeah. Now, this word comes from a character, Miss Malaprop, a famously blundering character in a play from 1775 called The Rivals. Now, her last name in this play is derived from the French phrase malapropos, which translates to inappropriate or out of place. Okay. Joke of the week. So Mama Mole, Papa Mole, and Baby Mole are all down in their mole hole having a little bit of dinner. And I think they were having a mole. Papa Mole, he starts sniffing around and he says, Mama Mole, I think I smell smoke. Mama Mole starts sniffing around and she says, I think I do too. So Mama Mole and Papa Mole go to the top of the mole hole and they start looking around, and sure enough, there's smoke. And Baby Mole, he's trying to get up there too so he can see what's going on. And Papa Mole says, "Yeah, I smell and see smoke." And Mama Mole says, I still smell the smoke too." And Baby Mole says, "I don't smell nothing but molasses." Okay. Question of the week. Last week I asked you, why does the sound of running water increase the urge to pee? Increase the urge to urinate? Well, running water sounds much like the act of urinating. And the brain forms a subconscious association between the two. Kind of similar to Pavlov's famous conditioning of dogs, ring a bell and they salivate. But the running water tells your nervous system to relax the bladder muscles in anticipation of urination. Yeah. New question of the week. Why do the months have different numbers of days? The months of this year, the months of any year, all have a different number of days in them. Why is that? We'll talk about that next week. Thought of the week. Fear doesn't stop death. It stops life. I'm a bit heavy, isn't it? So that's it for this episode. Don't forget about the playlist, okay? I'm throwing some good songs on there. If you want to contact me, I'm not sure why you would, but if you do, you can click on the send me a text button, little clicky there within the episode, or you can email me directly at bfodpodcast@gmail.com. Also, don't forget, if you're loving the show, which I'm sure you are, you can support it. You can pledge to give me a couple of dollars a month. Hell, it's not even a pledge. You can stop at any time. Okay? Like I said last week, just consider it a tithe. Okay? If you want to do it, I love it. If you don't want to do it, it's still okay. So, thank you for listening. I hope you were entertained. I hope you were a little bit educated. And I think we should do it again next week. Okay? So I'll talk to you then. Bye for now.